In this video, we're going to continue with our cinnamon rolls. And in this video, you'll see part 2 and the final part 3 to make the rolls. Once our dough has doubled in size, we're ready to begin the second part of our recipe. We're going to roll the dough out to a rectangle. And we'd like that rectangle to be about 16 by 21 inches. What I love about the pastry board that you see is that it's the size that I need to roll out the dough. So if I roll the dough out so that it covers the board, I should be all set. You'll notice that we have a full stick of margarine. It's going to be used in 2 different ways in this part of the recipe. Part of the margarine is going to get melted and set aside to brush on the tops of the rolls once they're in the pan. And the other part of the margarine is going to go into a small bowl. It's been out softening so that we can smush it easily and make it very spreadable. So we're just going to smush this all around so that it'll be nice and easy to spread when we're ready for that step. And then we'll set that aside. We've got 2.5 tablespoons of cinnamon, and that is correct. I said tablespoons, not to be confused with teaspoons. We want these to have a very bold cinnamon flavor. And 1 cup of brown sugar that's been firmly packed. And we're going to whisk those 2 ingredients together. Just whisk. So I want to get everything ready so that once my dough is rolled out, I don't have to pause for any more steps before assembly. So there's my cinnamon and sugar whisked together. We're going to set that aside as well. I've got thread and a small pair of scissors ready. I have a custard cup with some clean water in it. And I'm going to go ahead and microwave this, and then I'll be ready to roll out my dough. So to begin rolling my dough, I have placed a damp paper towel under my pastry board to help keep it from moving around as I roll the dough out. I'm going to very lightly flour my board. I want it to be very see-through. And then I'm going to take that dough out of the bag that it was in to rise. And I'm going to press it, kind of get those air bubbles out. If you've had it rising in the refrigerator overnight, your dough, I do recommend that you let it sit out for about 20 to 30 minutes. Come to room temperature, it'll be a lot easier to work with. So I'm just kind of pressing this to get the shape started as a rectangle before I start rolling it with the rolling pin. Make it a little bit easier on myself. By turning it over, I've floured both sides. And then I'm just going to take that rolling pin and use it to get the dough the rest of the way to that 16 by 21 or the size of the pastry board. And remember, so one of the reasons I like doing this on the board, other than it's easy to measure because I know the size of the board, is if I'm having any trouble rolling the dough, I can simply turn the board, because sometimes I find I have an easier time rolling from one direction than another. I can simply turn the board and put that direction to my advantage to get the dough the rest of the plate where I want it to be. So we are trying to kind of keep this straight edges. In the end, that makes it easier. roll this up here in a minute. So there, my dough now pretty much fits the size of my pastry board. My edges are fairly straight. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this butter, this margarine that I smushed and made spreadable, and I'm going to put it edge to edge on 3 out of 4 sides. One long side, I'm going to leave a 1/2 inch edge completely empty. No margarine, no cinnamon and sugar, and that's going to be to help us seal it up. And I always like that to be the edge farthest away from me. So we're just going to take the rubber scraper, and right about here, okay, so I'm going to leave that clean on the other side of that line that I just kind of marked. Go ahead and get the margarine to this far edge where I want it to be. And I want to leave at least a 1/2 inch clean, not a lot more. And then I need that margarine to cover every space of that dough from edge to edge on those other 3 sides. And all of it goes in. Yes, I know it looks like a lot of margarine, and it is. But these are going to make 12 servings. So we're going to divide it out. We want it pretty evenly coated as best you can. Just if you see it really thick in one area, move it to an area that's thinner. Again, keeping that 1/2 inch on that far long edge completely clean. And then we're going to take our cinnamon and sugar, and everywhere that we put margarine, we're going to put that cinnamon brown sugar mixture. Just kind of get it in the general area, making sure not to get it on that clean edge. And then we'll move it around a little more finely. Again, you want this mixture to go edge to edge on 3 sides. Everywhere you put margarine, you should have a cinnamon brown sugar mixture covering it. And go all the way up on that long edge, but leaving that 1/2 inch or so clean and empty, nothing on it. And you'll see in just a minute why that's so important. So once I have my cinnamon and sugar mixture where I want it, again, try to make it even. If we see it thicker in one area, move it to where it's thinner. Once it's pretty well in place, then we're going to press it into the dough. And this is one of the things that brown sugar really helps with, because brown sugar, as you know, when we measure it, it packs. And so that packing nature of the brown sugar helps it to stay in place on the dough when we press it down like this. Plus it gives a really nice rich flavor to the cinnamon rolls. So now that we have our dough covered with margarine and cinnamon and brown sugar, we need to roll it up so we get one nice long log. And we're going to start at that edge closest to us. And I think one of the hardest parts of this is keeping it even, especially in the beginning as you get started rolling it. So I like to roll it away from me. I kind of pull the dough back towards me as I roll it forward, because I want to keep a very tight spiral. Allows me to get more rings of cinnamon sugar. and I don't want it to telescope out, so I have to keep it even as I go. Just one end and then down to the other. And then once I get all the way to that far side, to that clean edge, and this is where it was so important, I'm going to take that water and put that on that edge. And this is going to help seal the dough. And then I'm going to bring that edge up. And pinch to seal it. The water helps that as well. So then I like to turn it just a little bit so that I don't see where I pinched the dough together. And we're going to mark where we're going to cut it. So when we do this, this is called scoring. And we need to cut it into 12 pieces, which means we need 11 marks. Because one mark creates 2 visual pieces. So I'm going to take this half, and about halfway I'm going to mark. Then I'm going to take this other half, and about halfway make a little mark. And if I decide that these are in terrible spots, I can simply roll the dough and start over. So now I have the dough divided into 4 portions, and I'm going to take each of those 4 portions and divide them into 3 rolls. And I'm not cutting through the dough. I'm just making a mark where I will cut through the dough. Now I don't want to press this down. I want to keep that nice circular shape, that nice roll. So I'm going to take a piece of thread, cut it to a comfortable length to work with, put it under the dough, bring it up like a U at one of those marks, cross it like an X, and pull. And I turn it on its side, I have a cinnamon roll. So what I'm going to do from there, I'm going to place my rolls in a 9x13 pan that I've greased with cooking spray. And when I arrange these, I want to have, since I didn't measure them exactly with a ruler, I'll probably have some that turn out a little bit larger than others. So I may have to move the position on them. I'm going to do 3 across and 4 down on this pan. And I want my 4 largest rolls to be in the 4 corners, and my 2 smallest rolls to be in the exact center of the pan. Because my corners will get the most heat, and the 2 in the center will get the least. Just kind of look as I put them in, and I might move them around. There's nothing wrong with that. As I work with my dough, I always want to put the pretty end up. See if this ends, if I put up like this, this is not as attractive as this side. Mark these just a little differently. You can see a lot of disproportion in these marks. I think these 2 are going to end up being my smallest. So now I have 12 cinnamon rolls in my pan, and I've put my 4 largest rolls in the corners. And I have my 2 smallest rolls in the center. And then I'm going to take that little piece of margarine that I melted and brush the top of each of these rolls to help seal them as they rise. Now, if you're doing this at home, you can simply put a loose piece of plastic wrap over the top and a towel. Place them in a warm corner of your kitchen for about an hour. They should double in size, kind of grow into each other, and then they'll be ready to bake. Or you can simply wrap them with plastic wrap and put them in the refrigerator to rise overnight. That's one of the things I love about this, is you can get them all ready like this. And the next morning when you're ready to bake and have cinnamon rolls, you just come downstairs, pop them in the oven. Okay, so now they're ready to rise. And once they're doubled in size, they'll be ready to bake. So if we're going to wrap them up for the refrigerator, we need plastic wrap. Even to set them aside in the kitchen, it's not a bad idea, and then put them in a warm place to rise. So while your dough is rising, after it's been shaped, or while the rolls are baking in the oven, that's a good time. Either of those are a great time to make your icing. So I have the cream cheese in the mixer, and as you can see, we're using the whisk attachment. Both the cream cheese and the margarine have been allowed to sit on the counter for about 30 to 60 minutes to soften. And we're just going to whip the cream cheese slightly before we add the margarine. Then we're going to beat those together. A little higher speed gets the whisk around the bowl a little bit better. You can see the 2 ingredients blending together. Then we're going to slow this down a little. And we're going to add the salt and the vanilla. Increase that speed just a little. And then before I begin adding the powdered sugar, I'm going to take a minute, scrape down the sides of the bowl. If you didn't have a KitchenAid mixer, you could do this part with a hand mixer without a problem. So really, you don't have to have a KitchenAid mixer to make these. But if you have one, it makes it a lot easier to do. One more moment on high to get everything blended well. And then just on stir while I add a little bit of powdered sugar at a time. I've already measured out what I need in this bowl so that I can just use the measuring spoon like a scoop. And I want to add the powdered sugar at a pace that's pretty continual, but is not so fast that ingredients end up flying out of the bowl. And that's why we have the mixer on a lower speed as well. So we'll just go ahead and continue adding this powdered sugar a little bit at a time. I'm going to add that last little bit of powdered sugar. And then I'm going to turn the speed up on the mixer to get a nice, smooth, fluffy frosting. This really adds a lot of air and gives it that nice whippy texture. Now if you're going to add it to your cinnamon rolls right after they come out of the oven, and that won't be very long after you make it, you can simply leave it in the bowl, cover it with a damp cloth or a damp paper towel just to keep it from drying out. But you can also make this a day ahead, and if that's the case, you want to put it in an airtight container and make sure that you keep it in the refrigerator. Whether sitting overnight in the fridge or an hour in a warm corner of your kitchen, the rolls should have doubled in size. You can see how they now fill in all the space in the pan, and they're ready to be baked at 400 degrees for about 15 minutes. You'll be able to tell that the rolls are ready to take out of the oven when the tops have begun to brown, as you see here on this roll. When it's time to add the cream cheese frosting, I like to add it to each roll individually as it's served, and that way you can meet the preferences of each person that you serve a cinnamon roll to. But you can also, if you choose, simply ice the entire pan at once and it's ready to serve. You may find that one pan is not enough for your family, as these are delicious cinnamon rolls.